Welcome to the Phil Steele Plus Tour for October 21st. Well, I tried to make a big hit last week. I went with the money line on that Nebraska-Purdue game. And since I put it on the money line, even though Nebraska covered the spread, we count it as a loss. So officially a losing week for the Phil Steele Plus Tour last week. They're rare this year. Still having a nice winning season, 21-15-1 on the year. The quick hitters even had a losing week last week, dropping their record down to 18-12, 60% on the year. We'll bounce back big this week. Let's hope for a clean sweep. Now, we've been starting out great the last 2 weeks with a Big 12 dog, and the Big 12 dog is covered each of the last 2 weeks. Let's go for 3 in a row on a Big 12 dog game. We're going to take a look at the Kansas State TCU game. Now, the first thing I want to say is this is a battle of undefeated teams in the Big 12 this year. It would not surprise me if the Big 12 championship at the end of the year featured a team with 2 losses in Big 12 play. I think we're going to see some Big 12 losses in the rest of the season, and it wouldn't surprise me if TCU or Kansas State end up with a couple of losses this year, even though they're unbeaten right now. So don't take too much into the winner of this one. I think there still has some tough schedules on deck. But for this game, let's take a look at it. And we'll start off with how they've been doing recently. If you click on the opponent's name, the series pops up, and as you can see, Kansas State has won 3 in a row, straight up. And once again, in this column here, if it is green, that means a team won. If it's red, that means it lost. You don't have to look at the score. You don't have to figure out which number is higher and who won. Green means that Kansas State won the game. They've won the last 3. Green over here means that they covered the game. They've covered the last 4. In fact, Kansas State is 6-1 against the spread against TCU the last 7 meetings. So that's a nice start for our underdog in this one. We're also going to take a look at the situation. And the situation heavily favors Kansas State. Now, TCU had a big game against Oklahoma, and they looked great in that game. They won at 55-24. Next week, they had a battle of the unbeatens against Kansas, and they won that one. It went down to the wire. They won it by 7, close game. Last week against Oklahoma State, and if you click on box score, and once again, the purpose of this tour is not only to give you winners, but to teach you how to use Phil Steele Plus to your fullest. Remember, I've been using Phil Steele Plus for 15 years, or maybe 12, 15 years we've had it on myself. About 5 years ago, I opened it up so people could use it. But nobody can use it as good as I do because I know where all the features are. But I want you to be able to use it as good as I do and get all the features. Now, collegepressbox.com lets us download the box scores on each and every game. And as you can see here, I go through the play-by-play, by the way. Here's the play-by-play all the way down here. Every single game. I go play, drive-by-drive, play-by-play of every single game every week. So, and plus, of course, I'm watching the 12 TVs in front of me all day long on Saturday, read the recaps, so I really get in tune with the game. But this is a game where Oklahoma State led by 30-14. They actually led by 17 at one point. But here it is, 30-16, they're up. And TCU battles back. Oklahoma State still leads. And then TCU ties it, or 30-16 in the fourth quarter. TCU gets 2 touchdowns, including this one right at the end of the game. This one here with 1:57 left to tie it, 30-30, and then won it in 2 overtimes. So that's a pretty draining schedule. And now their 4th straight big game. So 4 straight big games at home. Last week I liked Oklahoma State plus the 3.5 they covered. Kansas State may even be a better team than Oklahoma State. My computer says they're a better team than Oklahoma State. If you look at the AGG, it's got Kansas State is playing to a 107.5 level. Oklahoma State's playing to a 101.5 level. And the AGG has no starting grade on any team. So in other words, it doesn't have any number. If Idaho put up these type of numbers against these opponents, they would have the exact same grade. So no starting opponent. It only takes into account who you played, where you played them. So if you're on the road, it's an even bigger accomplishment. The total points, the total yards offense, rushing and passing, total yards defense, rushing and passing. All that goes into this individual game grade. As you can see, Kansas State's actually a better team than the Oklahoma State team that TCU beat in 2 overtimes, trailed by 14 at home, and won by 3.5. Now, as I mentioned, TCU's probably how much stuff is left in the tank for TCU Fourth straight big game. Meanwhile, Kansas State, they are fresh off a bye. So Kansas State is fresh off a bye this week. Here it was right here, a nice bye. And now they are playing at TCU. So you've got a team fresh off a bye. This team's playing its fourth straight big game. Kansas State's a better team than the Oklahoma State team that TCU only beat by 3. You're getting 3.5 points here, which you got to like. And Kansas State also has the defensive edge. Look here, they're holding opponents to 62 yards per game below their season average. TCU just 9 yards. You have the number 30 defense against the number 68 defense. The offenses are close. And really, Kansas State's taken off since Adrian Martinez has taken off. You got Martinez and Vaughn both in the backfield. A lot of good things going on here. We're going to go our third straight Big 12 dog. I'm taking Kansas State plus the 3.5 over TCU. Lock it in as your first selection this week. All right, let's go to SEC country. And you got Mississippi State. You know, I like to put the home team on the left. And what you do is when you're on Phil Steele Plus, this is the best thing to do. You see this page here when you get to it? Bookmark this page because you can click back to this all the time. You get all this stuff at your fingertips. You can get these are all the players that have been injured or transferred throughout the year. This helps because I have my magazine and I just circle the players in the magazine as they are out for the year. It looks like our injuries and transfers list hasn't been updated for a while. I don't see any 9 updates. Oh, yeah, there are some in there. So, check that out. And then you've got your strength of schedule, which we'll be getting back to in a little bit. You've got the pass efficiency defense. Illinois, number 1 in the country. My pass efficiency ratings take into account the strength of opponent played. If you hold Army to 43 yards passing, that's no big deal. They don't throw the football. If you hold USC to 200 yards passing, that is a good deal because they throw for a lot of yards. So it takes into account the strength of opponent here. As you can see, there's a wide range. Right now, Illinois, Penn State, UAB, Michigan, all at the top of the pass efficiency list. You can get the special teams. Who's number 1? Still Oklahoma State. They're hanging on to that tough spot. I had Michigan number 1 coming into the year. They're still up there at number 10. They got a shot at getting back up there to number 1. We'll see if they can get there. Texas has been playing exemplary special teams this year. San Diego State, Arkansas State, South Carolina, Georgia Southern, Duke, Miami of Florida. Look at this battle. Duke is playing Miami of Florida this week. We'll see who wins that special teams edge. Offense and defensive YPG. I'll explain these a little bit more when we get in there, but basically, let's say Ohio State's opponents are giving up 300 yards per game, then Ohio State gets 519 against them. That's how it works. Same thing here defensively. If their opponent is gaining 400 yards per game in every game except playing Ohio State would have held them to 264. So Ohio State's number 1, Georgia's 2. Look at this, James Madison 3, Alabama 4. This pesky Illinois team, number 5. They're not even in the top 15 of the AP poll, but Illinois is one of the better teams out there. Other things to look at, strength of wins, pain of losses. This one, you get credit for every opponent's win, FBS win. So if your opponent beat an FCS team, it doesn't count. Only their FBS wins of a team you beat. In the losses, you get credit for every loss of every opponent of teams you lose to, and then here it adds it together. Now, you'll notice Alabama's here at 16-0. Explaining that real quick, they lost to Tennessee. Well, Tennessee doesn't have a loss, so they don't have a loss. If Tennessee loses a game, then you'll see that pop up in Alabama's thing as well. You get credit for every loss your opponent have. You get credit for every FBS win your opponent have. Right now, Tennessee's number 1, Michigan 2, Alabama 3. Ohio State is here at 15, tied with Clemson, and we'll see how that goes as the season goes on. You got your power ratings updated for you each and every week. You have got your YPP on offense, which I think is invaluable. We see Ohio State, TCU, Alabama all near the top. Tennessee's actually only number 4. That's surprising. I would have thought they would have been number 1 with that explosive offense. And then the YPP defense, Illinois, number 1, Iowa 2. Big Ten's playing some really good defense this year. The FBS standings, if you want to take a look at that, it's updated. Links and newspapers, if you want to actually go to the team's official site, it's right here. You don't have to look it up. And then you've got your college ATS logs. This I love. You can go right here and you see your spread wins and losses, what the spread was on every game. That's updated each and every week. So this is something. Print this off for yourself. Look at this. You can see Utah State started out very slow in the losses. They got a couple of wins, but didn't cover last last week, but it gives you the wins and loss against the spread here, the spread on every game. And that's FBS, and we also have FCS logs. Look at that. I'll get back to that a little bit later. And we also have NFL. If you want to see how the NFL teams are doing against the spread, you've got that at your fingertips as well. And then the final thing we've got here, we'll get to the rest of that stuff, but all that's up here. Just thought I'd show you. But bookmark this page because then you can immediately go to the team pages. And when we go to the team page, we're going to hit Mississippi State over here, and we're going to take Alabama over here. And this is a game where a lot of folks are saying, well, Bama might not be that good. Their pass defense gave up 385 yards. Now they're taking on Mike Leach's pass offense. Look out, Bama's in trouble. I love Alabama in this game, and let me show you why. When you look at Alabama, they are off a loss, first of all. Regular season losses are rare. Here's how they did last year. They did lose a game. They lost A&M. They bounced back and beat, Mississippi State. And by the way, they beat them on the road, 49-9. And look at this. Over here, this tells you what they did against the opponent. So in other words, if it's showing a number 1, that means they held Mississippi State to a season low in yardage. And if we look at Mississippi State, you will see that if you look at all their yards all season long, their worst game was Alabama, 299 yards, the only one in red all year. The previous year, they had some reds, but who was number 1? Once again, if you come here and look at Alabama, and look at Mississippi State, they held them to a season low, 154 yards below their season average, and that was 200 yards. And this last year, they held them to 154 yards below their season average. So you can pretty much expect Bama, be angry off a loss, hold Mississippi State to 154 yards below their season average. That's only 270 yards. By the way, Mike Leach has had 2 meetings with Nick Saban. He has got 3 field goals in those games. And if you look at how Mississippi State traditionally has done when they travel to face Alabama, look at the home games. Alabama's won 41-0 at home, 24-0 at home, 51-3 at home. So in the last 3 trips to Tuscaloosa, Mississippi State has scored a grand total of 3 points, 1 point per game. That's something you got to like. Also, since Saban got there, and by the way, I love this. This is a great feature on Phil Steele, is click on this last 40 years. This gives you the spread all the way back to 1976. So if you want anything, you've got it completely archived back for you. I use this often. If I want to look up, hey, when's the last time they were a double-digit favorite? You can go back and look it up. But here's something down here. When did Nick Saban take over? This tells you the coaches. It tells you what they did number-wise. You could tell rushing yards, passing yards. So Nick Saban took over in 2007. You could track any coach right here. Just go to the last 40 years results, which is right here, and you'll be able to get that. So let's go back to that page. You've got them since 2007 against Mississippi State. So since 2007, it's been 32-7, 30-10, 38-7. This one was 25-20 in 2014. But in the 7 meetings, Nick Saban 7-0 straight up against Mississippi State at home, 6-1 against the spread, and Mississippi State scores 6.7 points per game. Alabama's 13-4 against the spread as a home favorite. And if we go back and look at their losses, losses are rare. Here they lost. They won't beat Mississippi State in 2019, 38-7. Here they lost to Auburn. They beat Michigan 35-16. They are actually 4-1 against the spread. Here they lost to Auburn, but they beat Clemson 24-6. 4-1 against the spread off a loss the last 5 games. So all that's going for you this week. You've got Bama. And by the way, Alabama's offense, there's nothing wrong with that. If Mississippi State's scoring 3, 6, or 9, and one other thing I want to point out, Mississippi State, if you go back and look at this LSU game, they had 13 points in the first half. They only had 3 in the second half. They had 184 yards in the first half. They only had 100 yards in the second half. They got shut down. When they took on Kentucky last week, they only had 225 yards. By the way, one of these touchdowns was an interception return for a touchdown. The offense scored 10 points, was held to 225 yards last week. I do think Bama's defense will stop Mississippi State. But on the other side of the coin, how do you hold Alabama? This is the only game they had 24 points and 20 at Texas, of course. It was 2 games that Bryce Young was banged up. Here Young missed this game against A&M. But overall, you look at this, 49, 49, 55, 63. They're averaging 45 points per game. Mississippi State just gave up 483 and 478 their last two games. I like Alabama minus 21 over Mississippi State. All right, let's go to Boise State and Air Force, see what we got cooking there in the Mountain West Conference. We're going to put Boise State on the left, and we're going to put Air Force on the right. And we've seen a different Boise State team these last 2 weeks. What's been the difference? The first 4 weeks, they went just 2-2. They had that 17-point loss to UTEP. If you click on the individual player stats, you see Hank Bachmeier was the starting quarterback. He hit just 13 of 34 against UTEP, 93 yards. Well, guess what? They said Talon Green's going to take over as the starting quarterback, and Bachmeier hit the road. Now it is Talon Green's team, and Boise said, we're going to run the football. And look at this, 44 carries, 316 yards, 52 carries, 316 yards. And both games were close at the half. They only had 148, 206 overall. But that run game just wore the other team down. In the second half, they were powerful. So 2 starts for Talon Green, 2 powerful wins. And by the way, preseason favorites in the Mountain West, San Diego State and Fresno State, those are 2 really good wins that they won by 22 and 20 points. Now let's go take a look at Air Force. I want you to scan Air Force's schedule here. Tell me who the toughest team they've faced is. UNLV, losing record. Utah State, losing record. Navy, losing record. Nevada, losing record. Wyoming, losing record. Colorado, Northern Iowa. Who's the toughest team they faced this year? They haven't really played one. So Boise's played Oregon State. They played San Diego State and Fresno. Air Force hasn't really played anybody this year. So I like the fact that if you take a look at the schedule strength, Air Force is actually number 127. We'll pop back in that schedule strength one in a little bit. Now let's take a look at the defense. Boise is holding opponents to 102 yards per game below their season average. That's pretty outstanding. Air Force is 77, which is good, but of course they've been playing a pretty weak schedule. And the final thing to look at, let's go take a look at the series history. Boise has won 4 of the last 5. Last year they lost the game at home. They're playing with legitimate revenge. They've done well against Air Force. They've won these 4, and they covered these 4 as a 14-point favorite, 7-point favorite, 9.5-point favorite, 17.5-point favorite. Look at this. They've played Air Force 10 times in the last 25 years. They have been a favorite in all 10 games. Boise State's a dog this week. And the final factor I'm going to throw in, how about this? You see this? When you play an option team, this is huge. Boise had a bye last week. So their full focus for 2 weeks has been stopping the option. The option's advantage is they take opponents on in 1 week to prepare for them. The teams can't really duplicate what they have going for them. It's a lot of advantage for there. But when you got that extra week to prepare, plus Boise put in work in the spring and summer, especially after a loss to Air Force last year, after beating them 4 straight years, I'm taking Boise State +2 over Air Force. All right, let's stay in the Mountain West. And we've been picking some dogs here. Good dog. Let's go with a favorite. We're going to take San Diego State is at Nevada. Now, San Diego State is a 7-point favorite in this game. You guys are familiar with Nevada. I went over them with you last week. Remember, they were favored by 6.5 over Hawaii, and I gave you Hawaii at home. Look what happened. 31-16 Hawaii. Hawaii dominated. 396, 277 yard edge. I pointed out last week, first 2 games, Nevada was outgained, but they were +9 in turnovers. The turnover edge has stopped. The losses have piled on. They're 0-5 straight up over the last 5 weeks. And most of those, maybe all of them, have been spread losses. You know what? Let's go check our magic log thing here and see if they have not covered all 5 of those games. We're just going to go to FCS logs right here, and we're going to take a look at Nevada. And this is the thing. When you're at home and you're putting the 2 games together at the end of the week and you're seeing who you want to play, I've clicked on FCS. Sorry about that. Let's go to FBS. You can do all this. You can click back and forth. You have a question? Guess what? The site answers your question. Look at this. Nevada has now lost 5 straight games against the spread. So the 2 games they won were via the turnovers, 5 straight losses against the spread, and that includes that game last week earlier against Incarnate Word at home. So we know Nevada is a play against team. What about San Diego State? Now, first of all, let's look at Nevada's losses. Incarnate Word, Colorado State, a bad team. Hawaii, a bad team. They got some bad losses in there. San Diego State's losses. Arizona, Pac-12 team. Utah, Pac-12 team, and a ranked team. Boise State, and we talked about how Boise's really coming on, and they probably are the best team in the Mountain West this year. Those are 3 good losses. These are 3 bad losses. Now, San Diego State, look at this red here. And I love the red and green. When you do these matchups at home, you can see right at a glance, oh, there's a lot of red over here. Oh, there's some red over here. But look at this red right here. 62, 108, 60, 65, 33. They could not pass the ball the first 5 games. And yet, they still beat Toledo, the best team in the MAC. They beat Idaho State handily. And their 3 losses are nothing to sneeze at. Those were all pretty good opponents. But what they did is they fired their offensive coordinator, and they brought Jalen Madden. Now, Jalen Madden, you guys who have the magazine know that he was a PS number 19 quarterback, originally signed at Mississippi State. That's a nice thing to have. Well, what happened last week? 24-36, 322. Bingo, they now have a pass game. And this shows you right here. Madden was actually playing linebacker at the start of the year. They moved him over. He started working with quarterback. Last week he steps in 24-36, 322. So you could tell Burmeister was banged up, not doing well. Kyle Crum saw some action. Use these individual stats. If you play fantasy football, you'll love them. And we not only have individual stats for this year. If you want to know how the players did last year against a certain team, there they are. If you want to know how the players did in 2020 against a particular team, when was this guy's best game? Or, hey, look, Greg Bell missed these 2 games, and that's why they struggled. You could tell that at a glance. Use the individual player stats right here. We also have start charts on every team, so you could see when players miss the game, maybe on defense. We usually color code them in red and green. For some reason, that one's not, but they will be. They almost all are. All right, so we've got Nevada's a bad team. Last week we went against Nevada and won. We got the San Diego State. We got their wins. And the final factor, how about this? San Diego State is fresh off a bye. I love that. And Nevada, what were they doing last week? Oh, they were in Hawaii playing the late night game. So they got home late. And now they're back at home. They probably have a sparse crowd. I mean, this is a team that's lost 5 in a row. San Diego State's fresh off a bye. And guess what? San Diego State has 1 loss in conference play. So if they beat Nevada, possible, Fresno, UNLV, San Jose State, New Mexico, and Air Force, they're back in the race for the Mountain West title where they played last year. So you have a Mountain West title contender that's got the offense going and always plays great defense against one of the weakest teams in the Mountain West. In fact, you would consider the 3 weakest teams to be Colorado State, Hawaii, and Nevada, and they just lost to Colorado State and Hawaii. I'm taking San Diego State -7 against Nevada. Lock it in as play number 4. This one will be a little bit shorter this week. It's a team that disappointed me last week in Wisconsin. It looked like they were going to roll over Michigan State early, but then they ended up losing in 2 overtimes. But Wisconsin is still a good team. And since their interim head coach went over, and Todd will update these head coaches. Right now he's got Paul Christ up there, but he'll mark down interim and put down the interim head coach up there for all these guys that are interims. But if you look, they're playing better ball right now. So the loss they had against Ohio State. But the main factor that I have got Wisconsin going this week is the matchup. If you look at Purdue, they've always struggled against teams with big offensive lines and run games because they have a small defensive front 7. Now, if you don't believe me that Purdue struggles in games like this, let's go take a look at the history. And this one's going to shock you. Remember, Wisconsin is only a 2-point favorite. Do you see this green? You could tell at a glance. You don't have to look at the scores. You could tell Wisconsin won all these games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 in a row. Now here they did not cover as a 24.5-point favorite. They did not cover as a 17-point favorite. And they did not cover as a 23-point favorite. However, in the last 15 years, not only are they 12-3 against the spread, but their only 3 non-covers were laying 17. They're given 2. Wisconsin's laying 2 points to Purdue. And we went versus Purdue last week on the money line, unfortunately. I should have gone with them against the spread. As you could tell, they only beat Nebraska by 6. They only beat Maryland by 2. They did catch Minnesota in a down week, and they only beat Florida Atlantic by 2. I'm going to take Wisconsin, -2 over Purdue. You got to love 15-0 straight up in the series, 12-3 against the spread, and the only non-covers when you're laying 17 or more. All right, I always like to throw an FCS game in here, so let's go ahead and take a look at one. Chris does a great job working with me on these FCS things, and we're going to take a look at Western Carolina against the Citadel. All right, we're going to put Western Carolina on the right. They're at home. We're going to put the Citadel. So if you're looking for Citadel, sometimes you look under C, it's the Citadel. Now, Citadel runs the option. We know that. And they have been struggling again this year. 222, 155, 223, 276. Last year they struggled a bit as well, but they're a little weaker this year, only averaging 266 yards per game. Last year they were at 374. So the offense not as good as last year. They have taken on some good opponents. We'll talk about Mercer a little bit later. Campbell's a good team. App State's a good team. So they're taking on some good teams. But the offense is struggling in the option this year. If we take a look, they did lose their quarterback, Jalen Adams. It's Peyton Derrick and Ahmed Green this year. Once again, if you want to learn about the Citadel, we have a complete write-up on every FCS team. So if you want to know about the quarterback position, running backs, receivers, I always go right here. This year they lose both their quarterbacks, their top wide receiver, and 3 starting OL. So what would you anticipate with that sentence right there? That they'd be weaker on offense? We saw the red. They're weaker on offense. Defensively, they do return 10 of their top 12 tacklers. So you would think they'd be better on defense this year. Last year they gave up 422. This year giving up 378. Boom. Read your magazine, which we have, a complete FCS magazine here on Phil Steele Plus, and you find out all about the team. Now you know, a little bit better defense than last year, definitely a weaker offense than last year. Now let's learn a little bit about Kerwin Bell. He's in his second year, and last year, it's a tough first year, and he brought in a brand new system. And look at this. His first 6 games, he lost them all. But look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4 wins in the last 5, and they can put up some offense. They're an offensive team. And if you go look at Kerwin Bell here, let's go take a quick look at their coaches. Kerwin Bell led Valdosta State to a national title and a school record 15 wins. He was a head coach at Jacksonville for 9 years prior, and, of course, played for Florida. We all know that. They have an explosive team, second year in Bell's system. He has their top 2 receivers, top rusher, and 4 starters on the all-line back. You would expect an explosive offense for them this year, and they have an explosive offense. 527 yards per game, 35 points per game. I think that when option teams take on a passing team, they struggle because they can't duplicate that passing. Look at this, 342 yards per game, 69% completions. Carlos Davis and Cole Gonzalez. Now, Davis had some trouble with interceptions. You notice this 14-12. They've been outgaining foes by big margins, but they haven't necessarily been seen on the scoreboard. And I think that's mostly your turnover margin. Gonzalez is a guy that's come in the last 2 games, and he's taking less chances. He's taken over here. As you see, only 1 interception, whereas up top here, Carlos Davis taking a few more chances. So I think that's a good factor coming in. And I don't like these 3 reds, especially going against the option. But take a look at last year. These guys were a bad run defense last year. But look at the Citadel. They held them to 177 yards rush, 5.7. So your question is, can Kerwin Bell's defense work against the option? 57 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. I'm going to say yes. It can work against the option, and I got to tell you, if I was looking at this red-green prior to this game against the Citadel last year, with this team 0-6 taking on the option with a poor run defense, I would have loved the Citadel. Nope, they went at the Citadel and won by 14. Now, they're a better team this year. I don't think the Citadel's as good as they were last year, and they're only laying 7. I'm going to take West Carolina -7 over the Citadel as your 6th official play. And what, by the way, I love this last 4 weeks AGG down here. This gives you the total AGG. And the total AGG says take West Carolina, 78-64. And let's just look at that one and this one. The last 4 weeks I'll show you in the other FCS game. So you got 78-64. They're 14 points better, and they're at home, limited by 17. And once again, they're laying 7. Take Western Carolina -7 against the Citadel. All right, the quick hitters have been having a hell of a year. but they didn't have a great week last week. So let's get the quick hitters back on track this week. We'll start with Miami of Florida against Duke. Duke's a road team. We'll put them on the left over here. And I'll try to make the quick hitters less lengthy than last week. Got a note on my YouTube about that, so I appreciate that. Appreciate any creative comments. We'll take a look here, though. Miami has won the last 2 games against Duke, 47-10 and 48-0. That's a nice start. Once again, I'll try to keep it quick, but you got all that stuff you can look up. Miami in this series is 6-1 against the spread at home. They did lose the last one, but prior to that, they had won 6. So 6-1 at home. Duke is 6-1 at home. Duke is 1-10 against the spread as an away dog. So they don't do well as an away dog. Miami is still alive in the Coastal. A lot of stuff has been thrown on Miami. They only have 1 ACC loss. If they run the table, they win the Coastal Division. That's simple. They win it. Well, they did need North Carolina to lose twice to get there, but that you got to figure in the wacky Coastal that'll happen. And finally, Duke is minus. What is that? Duke minus 93, 83 yards per game. Where's that from? I'm not sure where that one's from, but yeah. So let's make it a quick hitter. You've got the number. In the overall thing, I'm not sure what I'm looking at there. Sorry about that. Here it is. If you take a look here, add these two together, Miami is plus 81 yards per game, and against opponent averages, Duke is plus 2. So they definitely have a better average. Can't read my own writing at times. And the final factor, and I'll try to make this quick, Tyler Van Dyke. He struggled here, got benched against Middle Tennessee. They changed the offense for him the last 2 weeks. 42 of 57, 496 yards, 29 of 46, 353 yards. You got to like that. Tyler Van Dyke is coming to life. We're going to see him turn into the quarterback we thought he was at the start of the year. All right, let's get to the next one. This is my argue with the computer game. Oh, by the way, I don't have underdog outgain the opponent, but it has won 3 in a row. I'll have one next week. I forgot to look hard and find one for you. I'll get you one next week. Northwestern's playing Maryland. This is I'm going to argue with my computer game. If you look at the numbers, Maryland's 109, Northwestern's 91. It's all Maryland. I like Northwestern. I had that argument game a couple weeks ago. I won it. I'm going against the computer again this week. Fitzgerald is 39-21 against the spread as an away dog. And while you think after that Wisconsin game that they've been horrible all year, they did only lose to Penn State by 10. They outgained Miami. They outgained Southern Illinois. They outgained Duke. And, of course, they upset Nebraska. So they've had really one really bad game this year. Fitzgerald's great as an away dog. They've already covered at Penn State. They're off a bye. Maryland is playing their 8th straight week. That's where you can look right here. 1, 2, 3. I love it when it shows the buys. I think the buys make you a lot healthier. They've actually had 2 buys. So they're well adjusted after returning from England. So you've got a team playing their 8th straight week. Talia got banged up last week. It looked like a season-ending injury. They're saying he may play, but if he does play, I don't think he's going to be 100%. So despite all the numbers saying Maryland, I'm going to go against it and argue with my computer. I'm going to take Northwestern plus the 14 here. All right, let's get to the next game. We're going to go to the FCS team pages for this one. It's Youngstown State playing Western Illinois. We're going to put Youngstown State on the left. We're going to put Western Illinois on the right. Now, you know we've gone against Western Illinois numerous times. All you have to do is click here on the forecast. They pretty much lost everything. They lost their quarterback, their leading rusher, 5 of their top receivers, all 5 starting OL. Defensively, they lost 9 of their top 11 tacklers. We know that. We've been going against Western Illinois all year. Has it been productive all year? Let's quickly go back to the logs on this one and see if it's been productive. Come on. We'll get there in a sec. All right, there we are. And we're going to go to the FCS logs. And this I love, just having this stuff at your fingertips. Western Illinois. I've said at the start of the year, go against them. Oh, they've actually covered the last 2 games. Look at that. They covered against Southern Illinois plus 23. They covered at South Dakota State plus 32.5. Those are pretty big numbers. So they're playing a little bit better right now, but they're still Western Illinois. So let's put Western Illinois on the right. I see a lot of red here all over the place. Red on offense, red on defense, red on rush defense, red on rush offense, red on pass offense, red on pass defense, minus 216 yards per game. Now let's take a look at Youngstown State. They beat Duquesne. They beat Dayton. Losing to Kentucky, not bad. They lost to North Dakota State, arguably the best team in the FCS. They did lose a game last week. That's not a bad loss. They lost to North Dakota. Is North Dakota any good? Let's go take a look. And once again, when you're at night, you have that question. Boom, you pop up and look. North Dakota's 4-2 this year with their only losses at Nebraska. And remember, they were tied with Nebraska late in the third quarter and at Southern Illinois. So that's a good North Dakota team. So their losses have been to good teams. Last week, they didn't beat Indiana State by as much as they should, but now they're playing Western Illinois. And Western Illinois, as I mentioned, is all red. We got some nice green here in the run game, 5.6 yards per carry. And this I love. I was just looking through this last night, getting prepped for you guys. And we see that Youngstown State has changed their quarterback the last 2 weeks. They've gone to Mitch Davidson, and they played pretty well. Look at the yards, 458, 536 yards. I like that. But this is a guy I want you guys to keep your eyes on. I just noticed him last night. Jaleel McClawn. 203, 129, 36, 150, 138, 200 yards. He's already got 856 yards, 8.1 yards per carry, and he's going against a defense giving up 216 yards per carry, 4.8. Mitch Davidson, who's throwing the ball well, going against a defense giving up 67% completions. The only reason this 274 is not higher is teams are running at will on him. So I think we got a Youngstown State team that's a pretty doggone good team. And they, even though they're on the road, they're only laying 10.5. My numbers, if you look at the last 4 weeks, right here, Kentucky, North Dakota State, North Dakota there, they're playing to a grade of 75.3. Western Illinois is playing to a grade of 57.4. I'm going to give them a 2-point home edge here. That's 59. That's saying Youngstown State by 16 points. They're only laying 10.5. I love the red-green in this one. I think we've got a good run defense, a good run offense, a now good pass offense, and who cares about our pass defense because they're not a good passing team. They only complete 50% of their passes on the year. So add it all up, I got Youngstown State minus 10.5 over Western Illinois. All right, trying to make these quicker. Sorry about that, guys. I'm just trying to give you as much information as possible and show you how to use the site the best. Let's take a look here at the Miami of Ohio, Western Michigan game. And I got something new for you this week as well. I got my casual mentions. Last week I casually mentioned that Auburn had played a much more difficult schedule in Mississippi. It covered. I'm going to give you 2 casual mentions at the end of this one, and that's exactly what they will be. But we're going to put Miami of Ohio is against Western Michigan. I usually do fairly well in these MAC games. If you follow the Learfield channel, you can get more on that. But Learfield is a great site. I'm partners with Learfield for the magazine. I do a lot of stuff with Learfield. Check out the weekly podcast with Stephen and Wayne. Check out the weekly TV show that we put up there on Learfield with Kyle and Tripp. Go to Learfield.com for those. But here we go with Miami of Ohio against Western Michigan. Now, I think Miami is still one of the best teams in the MAC. They let me down last week. They looked like crap against Bowling Green. I'll just throw it right out there. They were dominated start to finish. Didn't look good. But they are a team that wins at home. They have actually won their last 13 MAC home games. When I talked to Coach Martin, he basically told me, yeah, it's an automatic. We're going to win our home games. So he's got a confident team that wins at home. Remember, we used them against Kent State. They were plus 6.5, and they dominated this game. If you go back to that Kent State game, they led early and often. It was 17-0. Kent got a late score here to pull them within 3, but Miami just dominated the game and won. And that Kent team's a lot better than Western Michigan. Now, Western Michigan, let's go back and look at their history here. They are a passing club. Wozniak, 14-4 ratio here. Wozniak, a 16-6 ratio. If you look at their passing numbers, 241 yards per game passing, 237 yards per game passing. 2020, 287 yards per game passing. Caleb Ellaby had a 18-2 ratio. Last year, 254 yards passing. Ellaby had a 23-6 ratio. You always get good quarterback play at Western Michigan, always. And last year, they had a couple basically 1,000-yard rushers in Tyler and Jefferson. So you had to have great expectations coming into the year. Tyler and Jefferson are off to a less than expected start. Western's passing numbers, look at this, 51% completions. They're allowed 25 sacks, 12.2%, and they have a 7 8-10 ratio from their starting quarterback. So they're not getting the quarterback play they're used to getting. The running backs aren't hitting what they did last year. Last year they were 6.5 yards per carry. This year 4.2. The numbers are low, 306 yards per game as opposed to 468. Western's not as good as last year. Their defense is minus 25 yards per game. Miami's is plus 33 yards per game. So you got a Miami team that's won 13 straight MAC home games. They're at home against a Western Michigan that's a shell of its former self. They are, and also Leicester is 4-9 against the spread as an away dog. And if we take a look at the last 4 weeks, AGG, Western Michigan is playing to a 76.1. Miami is playing to a 91.2. You know they don't care about non-conference games, but they're playing to a 91.2 level. That right there says 15. Add in the home field edge. It's Miami by 18.4 in the last 4 weeks. We're taking Miami minus 6.5 over Western Michigan. All right, let's take a look at the other one here today, and we're going to take a look at the Penn State-Minnesota game. I'll make this one a quick hitter and try to do it as quick as possible. Minnesota's on the left. Penn State's on the right. The one thing I want to point out here is the strength of schedule. So let's go to the strength of schedule, and when we go there, we are going to see that, and this I'll make this one a truly quick hitter. Strength of wins. That's what I'm looking for. Strength of schedule. Strength of schedule. There it is. Penn State has played the 22nd toughest schedule this year. Minnesota is down here. They have played, let's see where they are. They're down here somewhere. Oh, here they are, 99. So you got 22 against 99. Much tougher schedule for Penn State this year. Penn State has a whiteout at night. I love the fact it's a whiteout. And look at this. Penn State's defense is off an embarrassing game, so they're going to come fired up. Minnesota's offense last week, even with Ibrahim ran for 127 yards. Totaled 180 yards. They could not throw the ball. Morgan is questionable for the game. Penn State, as we showed, has one of the best pass defenses. Load the box and stop Minnesota and you win the game. I'm taking Penn State minus 4.5 over Minnesota. All right, before I get to my two final plays, which are going to be casual mention plays, I do want to point out a couple of things. We have NFL information on the site. I really don't follow the NFL that much, but I found two interesting tidbits because just casually glancing at the NFL, you might say to yourself, why are the New York Giants an underdog to Jacksonville with the records that they are? Well, look at this. If you go to offense and defense of YPG versus opponent average, Jacksonville is actually out plus 17 on offense, plus 15.9 on defense, holding opponents to 15.9 below their season average. That's 32.8. They're number 8. The Giants are down here. They must be doing it with smoke and mirrors. They're actually allowing opponents 39 yards per game more than the average coming in, and their offense is gaining 32 yards per game below. So that's why Jacksonville's favored in the game. I'm not picking Jacksonville. I'm telling you that's why Jacksonville's favored. And the other one would be, why are the Jets an underdog to Denver? Once again, Denver's up here at number 6. That's shocking for their record. They have had a lot of close losses this year. And the Jets are... Where are the Jets? They're right here at number 11. So Denver's actually on top of them once again. And that's the reason for those funny and interesting lines on those games. One last thing I want to point out before I get to the final two plays. Actually, two things I want to point out. And this one will be real quick. If you do have an interest in signing up, I'm going to give you the same specials we had last week. Once again, College Press Box for the rest of the year is $99. It gets you the final 7 issues. That's a great discount. NFL 12 issues, $99. Phil Steele Plus, we have discounted it for you, but only because you watched the tour. The price is $99. It's going to be $99 all year. This takes you all the way through February. So you got the rest of October, November, December, January, February. You'd have all this information at your fingertips that whole time. $99. It's $89 right now if you put in the code word PressBox Plus. The pigskin package down here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the specials. You guys want to sign up? Sign up. Here's the phone number. Give it a call. Pause your thing. Write it down. But Phil Steele Plus is well worth it. And I do want to mention, College Press Box or NFL Press Box, you get Phil Steele Plus absolutely free. So you're basically paying $10 extra, and you get the College Press Box. So that's your special there. The final thing I wanted to point out, an interesting game to watch. When I was going over the games with Chris, This isn't a pick. Once again, it's just a great game. I think if you have a chance to watch this one, you should. Mercer has been dominant all year. I don't know if you've been following along with Mercer, but look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-0 against the spread, and all by dominant numbers. Mercer this week is playing Chattanooga. So my first reaction was, I want to play on Mercer this week. And then we got to Chattanooga. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-1 against the spread. They've been equally impressive this year. Their only loss against the spread was against Illinois. That's a pretty good loss, and they were only getting 19.5. So that's going to be a hell of a game to watch. If you get a chance, Mercer at Chattanooga this week. Watch that one. All right, 2 casual mentions, and then we'll hit the door. We got North Dakota. The mention I want to make here, if we go to the FCS team pages, I'm going to click on South Dakota. I talked to you about North Dakota before. I told you they're a good team. But I want to point this out. South Dakota last year got a big win over North Dakota State. Big win. Anytime you beat North Dakota State, it's big. The next week they went at South Dakota and lost by 3. They were a 10.5-point favorite. This week, big win over North Dakota State last week. They're on the road, a 10.5-point favorite against North Dakota. I'm saying take North Dakota as a casual mention play. And finally, my strength of schedule game of the week. Yeah, I'm going to have to end this thing pretty soon. I'm going to start coughing. Strength of schedule game of the week for you. I put a lot of work into this, guys. I hope you appreciate it. We're going to take a look at this strength of schedule, and we're going to take Notre Dame, number 1, UNLV. They're way down here at, where's UNLV? Number 110. Strength of schedule game of the week, Notre Dame off a loss at home, laying 24.5. Take Notre Dame over UNLV. 2 casual mentions around wrapping up. Hope you enjoyed this week's Phil Steele Plus Tour with selections. I'm hoping you're using Phil Steele Plus for your handicapping and that you handicap by yourself each and every week. Good luck to you. I wish you nothing but winners this weekend.